Korean billionaire sees his black maid on a dating show. What he did next shocked everyone. Stop scrolling, right now. Picture this. You're standing in a penthouse worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. Crystal chandeliers casting golden light across Italian marble floors that gleam like mirrors. The smell of imported jasmine tea lingering in the air, mingling with the faint scent of orchids from the arrangement on the grand piano. And on the massive screen before you, a television so large it could double as a cinema. The woman who poured that tea just this morning is now being torn apart on live television. Her name is Jasmine Brooks, your maid, and she's crying. Not just crying, breaking, shattering into pieces right there on national television, under lights so bright they could burn through steel, before an audience hungry for entertainment at any cost. The audience is laughing, not gentle chuckles, but cruel, pointed laughter that echoes through the studio like shards of glass. The host is smirking, his teeth too white, his smile too wide, sensing ratings gold in her humiliation. The male contestants are whispering jokes behind their hands, their shoulders shaking with suppressed mirth. And you, Hae-jin Park, one of Korea's youngest billionaires, founder of Park Industries, the man who owns half of Seoul's skyline and has enough money to buy silence or complicity from anyone, it can do nothing but watch as the woman who's quietly served you for 3 years gets humiliated in front of 12 million viewers. Your fists clench so hard, your knuckles turn white. Your jaw tightens until your teeth ache. Something ancient and protective roars to life in your chest, something primal that you've kept buried under layers of business suits and board meetings and calculated politeness. And you realize, with terrifying clarity, that you're about to destroy everyone in that studio. That you're about to use every resource at your disposal, every connection, every dollar, every ounce of power you've accumulated over the years to make them pay for making her cry. But let's rewind. Let's start from the moment everything changed. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this, and drop a comment below letting us know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Turn up the volume, Hae-jin commanded, his voice cutting through the silence of his penthouse like a blade through silk. The junior maid fumbled with the remote, her hands shaking slightly, nearly dropping the expensive device onto the marble floor. She'd only been working at the Park mansion for 2 weeks, and Mr. Park rarely spoke directly to staff. He was known for his silence, his cold efficiency, his ability to close billion-dollar deals without ever raising his voice or showing a flicker of emotion. He was the kind of boss you feared and respected in equal measure, the kind whose approval you craved but never expected. But tonight, something was different. There was an edge to his voice, a tension in his shoulders that she'd never seen before. He sat forward on his leather sofa, his full attention on the television screen, his wine glass forgotten on the side table. The TV screen flickered to life, bathing the room in artificial light that seemed harsh against the soft ambiance of the penthouse. The logo appeared first, Hearts and Soul, Korea's most popular dating show, where ordinary people competed for love, fame, or both. Usually trashy. Always entertaining. The kind of show Hae-jin never watched, the kind he dismissed as beneath him, frivolous distraction for people with too much time and too little substance. Tonight was an exception. Tonight, he couldn't look away. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The host's voice boomed, his smile plastic and wide, stretching across his face like a mask. Tonight, we have something special, something extraordinary. A contestant who's traveled all the way from America to find love in the land of morning calm. The camera panned across the stage in a slow, dramatic sweep. 5 male contestants sat in designer suits that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, their expressions ranging from bored to curious to openly judgmental. The female contestants waited backstage, their faces invisible behind the curtain, their futures hanging on the whims of these men and a studio audience hungry for drama. Please welcome our next participant, the host announced with theatrical flourish. Come on out, sweetheart, don't be shy. The curtain parted with a whoosh of fabric. Hae-jin's world stopped, time froze. His heart, usually so steady, so controlled, stuttered in his chest. There she was, Jasmine Brooks, his maid, but not the Jasmine he knew. Not the quiet woman in a uniform who brought him breakfast and straightened his newspapers and disappeared into the background like a ghost. This Jasmine wore a stunning emerald dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, the fabric shimmering under the stage lights like liquid jewels. Her natural curls were styled elegantly, cascading over her shoulders in glossy waves. Her brown skin glowed under the harsh television lights, luminous and beautiful. She looked terrified. Beautiful. Completely out of place, like a dove that had wandered into a snake pit. "I'm Jasmine," she said into the microphone, her voice barely steady, wavering on the edge of breaking. "I'm 27, originally from Atlanta, and I've been living in Seoul for 3 years." The audience murmured, a low buzz of whispers that swept through the studio like wildfire. Someone in the front row pointed, their finger extended without shame. Another person laughed, quickly covering their mouth with their hand, but not quickly enough to hide the cruelty in their eyes. Hae-jin leaned forward, his heart pounding. Inexplicably, his hands gripping the armrests of his sofa so hard the leather creaked in protest. Why was she here? Why had she done this? The questions swirled in his mind, but beneath them was something else, something he couldn't name. Concern? Protectiveness? Something more? "So, Jasmine," the host said, his tone dripping with false sweetness, like honey laced with poison. "What brings a beautiful American girl like you to our show? Looking for a Korean husband? Want to marry into Korean culture?" Nervous laughter rippled through the studio, each chuckle a tiny act of cruelty. Jasmine smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Hae-jin could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself too rigid, too controlled. "I just wanted to try something new. Step outside my comfort zone. Brave," the host exclaimed, his enthusiasm as fake as his spray tan. "Very brave, very courageous. Now, tell us, what do you do for work? What's your profession?" Silence. Hae-jin watched as Jasmine's throat bobbed, as her fingers twisted together in a gesture he'd seen 1,000 times when she was nervous, as she took a breath that seemed to cost her everything. "I'm a housekeeper," she admitted quietly, her voice almost too soft to hear. The laughter exploded. Not polite chuckles, not gentle teasing, full, mocking laughter that echoed through the studio like a physical slap, like a wave of sound that crashed over Jasmine and threatened to drown her. The cameras captured it, all the cruelty, the judgment, the casual dismissal of a human being's worth. Even the host seemed taken aback by the volume, by the sheer viciousness of it. "A maid?" one of the male contestants repeated, his eyebrows raised so high they nearly disappeared into his hairline. "You're a maid? You clean houses?" Jasmine nodded, her smile crumbling at the edges like old paper, her eyes beginning to glisten with unshed tears. "Well," the host recovered quickly, sensing entertainment, sensing ratings, sensing blood in the water. "That's certainly humble, very humble. Let's see if any of our eligible bachelors are interested in getting to know you better. Gentlemen, any takers? Anyone brave enough?" The 5 men exchanged glances, and Hae-jin saw it all, the silent communication, the shared understanding, the collective judgment. One shook his head immediately, not even trying to hide his disdain. Another pretended to check his phone, as if Jasmine wasn't even worth acknowledging. The third, a cocky real estate developer named Min-jun, who Hae-jin vaguely recognized from business circles, leaned back in his chair with the kind of arrogance that came from never being told no, and said clearly into his microphone, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Sorry, sweetheart. I don't date people who clean toilets for a living. I have standards." The audience gasped, a collective intake of breath, and then erupted in laughter again. Some people clapped, someone whistled. Jasmine's face went rigid, all emotion draining from her features like water through a sieve. Hae-jin saw the exact moment her spirit cracked, saw the way her shoulders hunched inward protectively, saw her eyes glisten with tears she refused to shed, tears that would give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd broken her completely. "Jasmine?" the host prompted, clearly hoping for drama, for a meltdown, for tears and anger that would make good television. "Any response? Want to defend yourself?" She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "May I be excused?" Of course, of course." The host waved her off dismissively, already moving to the next contestant, already forgetting she existed. "Thank you for participating. Better luck next time." Jasmine walked off stage, her heels clicking against the polished floor with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Her head held high even as tears began to stream down her face, leaving trails of mascara on her cheeks. She didn't run. She didn't collapse. She walked with dignity, even as her world crumbled around her. The camera followed her backstage, because of course it did. Because her humiliation was entertainment. Because her pain was profit. That's when things got worse. Did she actually think she had a chance? One of the female contestants, a model named Yuna, with legs that went on forever and a face that graced magazine covers, said loudly in Korean, not bothering to lower her voice. A black maid on Hearts and Soul? What was the casting director thinking? Were they drunk? Another girl giggled, high-pitched and cruel. I heard she cleans houses in Gangnam, probably hoping to marry rich and quit scrubbing floors. Like a modern Cinderella, except no prince is coming. Jasmine kept walking, even though Hae-jin could see her shoulders shaking, could see the way her breathing had become uneven. She understood Korean. She'd heard every word, every single cutting, cruel word. Then Min-jun appeared in the hallway, still wearing his smug expression, his designer suit, his air of superiority that came from a lifetime of privilege. Hey maid girl, he called out, his voice carrying down the corridor. No hard feelings, right? It's just, standards. Business is business. Jasmine stopped. Turned slowly. Her voice was ice when she spoke, cold and sharp enough to cut. My name is Jasmine. Right, Jasmine. He smirked, not even having the decency to look ashamed. Look, you seem sweet, really you do, but this show isn't for people like you. Maybe try something more realistic next time? Something more your speed, like a job fair? One of the crew members, adjusting a light nearby, snorted with laughter, the sound loud and ugly in the confined space. Jasmine's hands trembled. She clutched her small purse tighter, her knuckles going white with the force of her grip, and tried to move past him, tried to escape with whatever dignity she had left. But someone bumped into her, hard, deliberately. A cup of iced coffee splashed across her emerald dress, the cold liquid seeping through the fabric, staining the beautiful material, ruining what was probably the most expensive thing she owned. The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls, bouncing around like bullets. Oops, the crew member said, not sounding sorry at all. My bad. Should have watched where I was going. Jasmine stood there, dripping, humiliated, her entire body vibrating with suppressed emotion. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. What could she say? What defense did she have? She was outnumbered, outmatched, drowning in a sea of cruelty with no lifeline in sight. And then, cutting through the chaos like thunder, like the voice of God himself, that is enough. Every head turned, every laugh died, every smile froze. Hae-jin Park stood at the end of the hallway, 6 feet of controlled fury in a midnight black suit that probably cost more than the entire production budget of this show. His eyes, usually so carefully neutral, so perfectly controlled, burned with an intensity that made several people step back instinctively, their bodies recognizing danger before their minds could process it. The laughter died instantly, choked off like someone had flipped a switch. Mr. Park, the producer stammered, rushing forward, his face going pale, sweat beading on his forehead. We didn't know you were here. We weren't expecting. Hae-jin ignored him completely, as if the man didn't exist, as if he was beneath notice. His gaze locked on Jasmine, who stood frozen, coffee dripping from her dress, shock written across her face in bold letters. Miss Brooks, he said quietly, his voice soft but carrying absolute authority. Come with me. She blinked, confusion mixing with her humiliation. Sir? Now. Min-jun found his voice first, the arrogance returning as his brain tried to process what was happening. Wait, you know her? The maid? Hae-jin's gaze swung too, in with the precision of a targeting laser, and the man visibly wilted, his bravado evaporating like morning mist. You? Hae-jin said softly, each word deliberate and deadly. Just mocked an employee of Park Industries on national television. You humiliated her for sport. My lawyers will be in contact with you first thing tomorrow morning. I suggest you find very good legal representation. Min-jun's face went white, all the blood draining away, leaving him looking like a ghost. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no sound came out. Hae-jin looked at the producer next, his expression making grown men want to weep. You allowed this treatment to happen on your set. You encouraged it. You filmed it for entertainment. I will be reviewing Park Industries' advertising contracts with this network. All of them. Every single one. The producer's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his career flashing before his eyes. Finally, Hae-jin extended his hand toward Jasmine, his expression softening just slightly. Please. She hesitated only a second, her brain trying to catch up with reality before taking it. Her hand was cold, trembling like a trapped bird. He wrapped his fingers around hers, his grip firm and protective, and led her through the stunned crowd, past the whispering contestants who suddenly looked very small, past the scrambling crew who were already making phone calls, out into the Seoul night where his car waited like a chariot ready to carry her away from this nightmare. The door closed with a solid thunk. The city lights blurred past the window. And Jasmine finally let herself cry, her body shaking with the force of sobs she'd been holding back all night. Hae-jin said nothing. He simply handed her his pocket square, monogrammed silk that was softer than anything she'd ever touched, and watched the city pass by. His jaw set in granite, his mind already calculating the 12 different ways he was going to make everyone in that studio pay for what they'd done. The car ride felt eternal. Jasmine sat rigidly in the leather seat that was more comfortable than her entire bed. Hae-jin's pocket square pressed against her face, trying desperately to stop crying, to regain some composure, to become invisible again. The silk fabric smelled like his cologne, something expensive and cedar-scented, completely unlike the harsh cleaning products she was used to, the chemicals that had become the background smell of her life. "I'm sorry," she whispered finally, her voice raw and broken, barely audible over the hum of the engine. Hae-jin, staring out the window at the city he owned large pieces of, didn't move. "For what?" "For embarrassing you. For going on that show. For existing where people could see me. For," her voice cracked like thin ice, "for being seen." His head turned slowly, like a predator focusing on prey. In the dim light of passing street lamps, his expression was unreadable, carved from stone. "You think you embarrassed me? Didn't I?" She laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and ugly. "Your maid, on national television, getting humiliated, getting destroyed. The gossip sites are probably already writing headlines. The internet is probably already making memes. I'm probably trending on Twitter right now." "They are," he confirmed quietly, pulling out his phone. "I've received 17 notifications in the past 10 minutes. Would you like to see them?" Her stomach dropped, falling through the floor of the car. "Oh God, no, I don't want to know. They say, Park Industries employee humiliated on dating show. Mystery woman, defended by billionaire CEO. Who is the black maid that caught Hae-jin Park's attention? Some of them are worse, much worse." Each word was a knife, sliding between her ribs, finding her heart with unerring accuracy. Jasmine pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to block out the world. "I should resign. I should disappear. I should leave. Korea tonight and never come back. I should stop." The command in his voice made her freeze. "You're not resigning," Hae-jin said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You're not disappearing, and you're not apologizing for existing or for wanting something more than what you had." "But, no." He turned to face her fully, and for the first time, Jasmine saw something in his eyes beyond coldness, beyond control. She saw anger. Real, burning anger. "Those people in that studio, they humiliated you because they could. Because they're cruel and small and incapable of seeing past their own prejudices. Because they think someone's worth is determined by their job title, or their skin color, or their bank account balance." He paused, his jaw working. "I should have protected you better. I should have known you'd face this kind of treatment. I should have." He stopped, his control slipping for just a moment. "I'm the one who should be apologizing." Jasmine stared at him, tears still streaming down her face, not understanding. "Why do you care? I'm just your maid, just someone who cleans your house and brings you tea. Why does it matter to you?" The question hung in the air between them like a living thing. Hae-jin was quiet for a long moment, staring at her with those dark, intense eyes that seemed to see right through her, past her defenses, past her walls, to the vulnerable, hurting woman underneath. "Because," he said finally, his voice so soft she had to lean forward to hear it, "you're not just my maid. You never were. The car pulled up to his building. The doorman opened the door with a flourish, but Hae-jin waved him away, helping Jasmine out himself with a gentleness that made her throat tight. "Come upstairs," he said, his hand on the small of her back guiding her. "We need to talk." And for the first time in 3 years, Jasmine was going to his penthouse, not as an employee, not as someone invisible, but as someone who mattered. Someone who was seen. The penthouse felt different at night, Jasmine realized as Hae-jin led her inside. The lights were dimmed, casting everything in soft gold. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, souls sprawled below them like a carpet of stars, the city alive and buzzing with 11 million people who had no idea what had just happened, who were going about their lives unaware that something fundamental had shifted in the universe. "Sit," Hae-jin said, gesturing to the sofa. Not an order, but an invitation. Jasmine sat, feeling small and out of place on furniture she'd dusted 1,000 times, but never sat on, never touched beyond what was necessary to clean. Hae-jin disappeared into another room and returned with a soft blanket and a cup of tea. "Chamomile," he said, handing it to her. "Your favorite." She blinked. "You know my favorite tea? I know a lot of things about you, Jasmine." He sat down across from her, not on the sofa but on the coffee table, bringing himself down to her level. "I know you take your tea with honey but no milk. I know you read thriller novels on your breaks but hide them when you hear me coming. I know you hum when you think no one's listening, always the same song, that old Nina Simone one. I know you've been sending money back to your sister in Atlanta every month, putting yourself through online business courses late at night, working toward something more." Each revelation hit her like a shock. "How do you—" "I notice things," he said simply. "I've been noticing you for 3 years, Jasmine. Every day, every moment. You think you're invisible, but you're not. Not to me. You never were." Jasmine's hands trembled around the teacup. "I don't understand." "Neither did I," Hae-jin admitted, and for the first time, she saw vulnerability in his expression. "For 3 years, I told myself I was just being observant, that I was just being a good employer, that what I felt was respect, nothing more. But tonight, when I saw you on that screen, when I saw them laughing at you, hurting you." His hands clenched into fists. "I realized I'd been lying to myself." "Lying about what?" He met her eyes. "About the fact that somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you." The world stopped. Time froze. Jasmine's heart stuttered in her chest, unable to process what she'd just heard. "You, what?" "I'm in love with you," Hae-jin repeated, his voice steady despite the enormity of what he was saying. "I have been for longer than I care to admit. And tonight, watching you suffer, watching you be humiliated while I sat in my penthouse doing nothing, made me realize I was done lying. Done pretending. Done hiding behind propriety and social boundaries, and all the ridiculous rules that say someone like me can't love someone like you." Jasmine set down her teacup before she dropped it, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't hold it steady. "This is crazy. You're my boss. You're a billionaire. I'm nobody." "You're not nobody," he said fiercely, leaning forward, his intensity overwhelming. "You're everything. You're kind and brave and resilient. You came to a foreign country alone and built a life from nothing. You face prejudice every day and still smile. You have more strength in your little finger than most people I know have in their entire bodies. You are extraordinary, Jasmine Brooks. And I am done pretending otherwise." Tears spilled down her cheeks again, but these were different. These weren't tears of humiliation or pain. These were tears of disbelief, of hope, of something she'd thought was impossible. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Hae-jin said softly. "I'm not asking for a response. I'm not asking you to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand that what happened tonight, what those people said to you, what they did to you, it doesn't define your worth. It doesn't change who you are or how I see." He stood, giving her space, giving her room to breathe and think and process. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," he said, his voice returning to something more businesslike, though the emotions still lingered underneath. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps. If you want to press charges against the show, I'll support you. If you want to quit, I'll write you the best reference letter anyone has ever received. If you want nothing to do with me after tonight, I'll understand. But whatever you decide, know this: you are valued. You are worthy. You are seen." He turned to leave, to give her privacy, but Jasmine's voice stopped him. "Hajin." He paused, his back to her, his shoulders tense. "I fell in love with you too," she said, the words tumbling out like water over a cliff, like something she'd been holding back for so long it hurt. "I've been in love with you for 2 years, maybe more, but I never imagined someone like you could ever." He turned slowly, hope dawning in his eyes like sunrise. "Someone like me?" he repeated softly. "See someone like me," she finished. "Really see me, not as a maid or an employee or a background character in your life, but as a person, as someone worthy of love." In 3 strides, he crossed the space between them. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. "May I kiss you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Please," she breathed. And he did. Soft at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might break. But then Jasmine leaned into him, her hands finding his shoulders, and the kiss deepened, became something urgent and real and absolutely perfect. It tasted like tea and tears and 3 years of longing finally finding release. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, Jasmine laughed softly, the sound watery but genuine. "This is insane," she said. "Completely," he agreed. "Your mother is going to kill me. Probably. The media is going to tear us apart. Almost certainly. People are going to say terrible things, make assumptions, judge us. Without question." She pulled back slightly to look at him. "So what do we do?" Hae-jin smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Jasmine had ever seen. "We face it together. We fight for this. We prove them all wrong. That simple? That simple." And somehow, in that moment, with Seoul glittering below them and the world about to erupt in judgment and commentary, Jasmine believed him. Because love, real love, the kind worth fighting for, was never simple, but it was always worth it. The next morning, Hae-jin called a press conference. The media descended like vultures, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, questions shouted over each other in a cacophony of noise and desperation for a story. The conference room at Park Industries was packed, standing room only, every major outlet represented. Hae-jin stood at the podium, Jasmine beside him, their hands clasped together for everyone to see. She wore one of his designer suits, tailored to fit her perfectly, no longer a maid but his equal in every way that mattered. "Thank you all for coming," Hae-jin began, his voice carrying across the room with practiced ease. "I'm sure you're wondering why I've called this conference. Let me be direct. I am in a relationship with Jasmine Brooks. Yes, she worked as my housekeeper. Yes, we are from different backgrounds. Yes, I am aware of what people are saying online. And no, I don't care." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jasmine is one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. She's intelligent, compassionate, hardworking, and brave. She deserves respect, not because she's with me, but because of who she is as a human being. Anyone who cannot understand that is not someone whose opinion I value. He turned to Jasmine. "Would you like to say something?" Every eye in the room locked on her. For a moment, Jasmine was back on that dating show stage, feeling small and exposed and worthless, feeling the weight of judgment pressing down on her like a physical force. Then she felt Hae-jin's hand squeeze hers, felt his presence beside her, solid and real and unwavering. She stepped forward to the microphone. "My name is Jasmine Brooks," she said, her voice shaking but clear, gaining strength with each word. "I'm 27 years old. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I moved to Korea 3 years ago, looking for a new start, chasing a dream I wasn't even sure existed. I worked as a housekeeper because that was the job I could get, not because it was my dream, not because I wasn't smart or capable enough for something else, but because the world had very specific ideas about what a black woman from America could do in Seoul." The room was utterly silent, every person hanging on her words. "I went on that dating show because I wanted to prove I was more than my job title, that I deserved love, respect, and visibility. Instead, I was humiliated, mocked, treated like a joke, like something less than human. My pain was entertainment, my humiliation was ratings." Her voice grew stronger, more confident. But then Hae-jin did something no one else would do. He saw me. Not as a maid, not as a stereotype, not as a joke or a novelty or a diversity checkbox. As a person. as someone worthy of dignity and respect and love. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall, let the cameras capture her vulnerability, her humanity. So yes, we're together. And yes, I know what you're all thinking, that I'm a gold digger, that I seduced him, that this is all fake, some publicity stunt or calculated move. Think whatever you want, write whatever stories sell the most papers. But know this, I love him. Truly, deeply, completely, and he loves me. And that's the only thing that matters. Not what you think, not what society says, not outdated ideas about class or race or propriety, just love. Pure, simple, complicated, messy, real love. She stepped back. The room erupted like a volcano. Questions flew like bullets. How do you respond to accusations of opportunism? What about the cultural differences? Mr. Park, has your mother approved this relationship? Miss Brooks, are you pregnant? That last question hung in the air like poison gas. Haejin's expression went arctic, cold enough to freeze fire. This press conference is over. Anyone who continues to harass Miss Brooks will be dealing with my legal team. But before they could leave, one reporter stood up. An older Korean woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Someone who looked like she'd seen enough life to know what mattered. Mr. Park, Miss Brooks, she called, her voice cutting through the chaos. One final question, if I may? Haejin tensed, ready to refuse, but something in the woman's expression made him nod. Are you happy? The woman asked simply. Just happy. That's all I want to know. Jasmine and Haejin looked at each other. Despite everything, the cameras, the judgment, the chaos swirling around them like a storm, they both smiled. Real smiles. The kind that come from somewhere deep inside, from a place of absolute truth. Yes, they said in unison, their voices harmonizing. Then congratulations, the woman said, her own smile genuine and warm. I hope you find peace. I hope you find joy. I hope the world learns to be kinder. 6 months later, the rooftop garden of Park Industries was Jasmine's favorite place in all of Seoul. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air, pink petals catching the golden hour light like tiny parachutes descending to earth. The city sprawled below, a vast organism of steel and glass and humanity, but up here, everything was quiet, peaceful, removed from the noise and judgment and endless commentary that had become their lives. Found you, Haejin said, emerging from the stairwell, his tie loosened, his jacket slung over his shoulder, looking more relaxed than he had in years. I wasn't hiding, Jasmine replied, not looking away from the sunset that painted the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Liar. He sat beside her on the bench they'd installed specifically for these moments, handing her a cup of tea. Mrs. Kim said you've been up here for 2 hours. She's worried you're avoiding the dinner party. Mrs. Kim needs to mind her business. She's worried about you. They all are. The entire staff has adopted you as their collective daughter. Jasmine sipped her tea. It was perfect. He always made it perfect now, had learned exactly how she liked it, down to the precise moment to remove the tea bag. I saw the article. Haejin winced. The maid who became a mogul? That's the one. She laughed softly, the sound carrying on the evening breeze. They make it sound like a fairy tale. Like some modern Cinderella story where the prince swooped in and saved me. Isn't it? Fairy tales are easier than real life, cleaner. They don't show the death threats or the protesters or the think pieces debating whether we're destroying Korean culture or whether I'm appropriating Korean culture or whether we're some kind of social experiment gone. He was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Do you regret it? Which part? The dating show? The scandal? Becoming director of Park Industries' new diversity initiative? The magazine covers? The speeches? The hate mail that comes weekly? Any of it. All of it. Jasmine looked at him. 6 months of dating, 6 months of media scrutiny that ranged from supportive to vicious. 6 months of death threats mixed with love letters, of protests outside the building and standing ovations at conferences. His mother still barely spoke to her, though there had been a slight thaw at Christmas. Half the board wanted her gone, thought she was a PR liability. Online forums debated their relationship daily, with entire subreddits dedicated to analyzing their every move. But they were still here. Still together. Still fighting. Still loving each other through every obstacle. No, she said finally, her voice certain. I don't regret any of it, not one moment. Even when it's hard? Even when it feels impossible? Especially when it's hard. She laced her fingers through his, their hands fitting together like puzzle pieces that had been searching for each other. Because easy doesn't teach you anything. Easy doesn't make you grow. Easy doesn't make you appreciate what you have. And easy definitely doesn't make you stronger. Haejin kissed her temple softly, his lips warm against her skin. I love you. I know. She smiled, leaning into him. You tell me every day. Multiple times a day. It's almost annoying. Not enough, he murmured against her hair. I could say it 1,000 times a day and it wouldn't be enough. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over Seoul, painting the sky in a riot of colors that no artist could ever capture, the city transforming from day to night in that magical in-between time when anything felt possible. Hey Jin? Jasmine said eventually. Thank you for seeing me, when no one else would. When I couldn't even see myself. He pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders, solid and warm and real. Thank you for teaching me how to be seen, for showing me that power isn't about money or control or building walls to keep people out. It's about vulnerability. It's about opening doors. It's about being brave enough to love someone even when the world tells you not to. Below them, the city hummed with life, millions of stories unfolding simultaneously. Somewhere, someone was probably writing another article about them, another think piece about class and race and modern romance, another hot take about whether their relationship was revolutionary or problematic or both. Let them write, Jasmine thought. Let them talk. Let them debate and analyze and judge. She'd stopped caring what the world thought the moment she realized the only opinion that mattered was her own. And Haejin's. And maybe Mrs. Kim's, just a little. So, Haejin said casually, though Jasmine could hear the nervousness underneath, I was thinking about next month. What about it? My mother invited us to her birthday party, a formal dinner. The whole family will be there. Jasmine groaned, dropping her head onto his shoulder. Please tell me you're joking. Please tell me this is some elaborate prank. I'm not. She specifically requested your presence, used your name and everything. To poison my food? He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. She's warming up to you, slowly, glacially slowly, like continental drift slowly, like ice age slowly. Exactly. Will I survive the night? Probably. He paused, his voice becoming serious. I'll protect you, always. No matter what happens, no matter who judges us, no matter how hard it gets, I'll be there. You always are, she said softly. Always, he promised, and it felt like a vow, like a covenant, like something sacred and unbreakable. And as the stars began to appear over Seoul, tiny pinpricks of light in the darkening sky, Jasmine realized something profound. She'd started this journey looking for love on a dating show, looking for validation from strangers, looking for someone to tell her she was worthy. Instead, she'd found something infinitely better. She'd found herself, her voice, her power, her worth. And somewhere along the way, she'd found him too. Not because he rescued her, though he had. Not because he defended her, though he did. But because they'd rescued each other. Because they'd both been trapped in cages of their own, making him in his lonely tower of wealth and expectations. Her in her invisible prison of service and silence, and they'd given each other the keys to break free. This story isn't just about a billionaire and his maid. It's not just about class differences or cultural barriers or overcoming prejudice, though it's about all those things too. It's about every person who's ever felt invisible, who's been judged by their job instead of their worth, who's been told they don't belong, don't deserve, don't matter. Every person who's been made to feel small by a world that values the wrong things. Jasmine's courage wasn't in going on that dating show, though that took bravery. It was in refusing to shrink when the world told her to disappear. It was in standing up when everyone else expected her to stay down. It was in believing, even when she had no evidence, that she deserved more. Haejin's strength wasn't in his wealth, though that was formidable. It wasn't even in his power or influence or the empire he'd built. It was in recognizing that true power comes from lifting others up, not looking down on them. It was in choosing love over propriety, humanity over hierarchy, what was right over what was easy. Together, they proved that love doesn't see job titles. It doesn't see bank accounts or social status or skin color or any of the artificial barriers humans create to separate themselves from each other. Love sees humans. Beautiful, flawed, brave, terrified, hopeful humans doing their best to navigate a world that often makes no sense. And that recognition, that simple act of seeing another person's full humanity, is the most radical thing of all. It's revolutionary. It's transformative. It's everything. Want to see the full video breakdown of this incredible story? Click here to watch on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another inspiring tale of courage, love, and breaking barriers.